All right, let's talk about JD Vance. I'm fascinated by this. I want to clone myself and start a book about how the arc of JD Vance from the day he was picked to be Trump's running mate through what I expect to be a coronation to be the nominee in 28. That's my anticipation. Could change, but that's what I anticipate. Explain if you were writing a book about this. So you're helping me with my first draft. How has JD Vance gone from someone who literally during the convention, again, remember people sometimes forget, Trump was shot on Saturday and he hadn't named his running mate yet, and then he picked Vance. And in the days after Trump was shot, when so much of the focus was, is Trump going to be okay? Obviously, I had people who were Trump loyalists, prominent people, coming to me at the convention saying, "Please don't let him pick JD Vance. Please, we really don't want him." Now, some people like Tucker and Don Jr. did, and Charlie Kirk, but there were a lot of prominent people against him. He's gone from that. And a guy who said Trump was America's Hitler in 2016 to, I believe, the most beloved vice president within the party of anybody I've ever seen in my career. They tell that story. How did JD Vance go from someone about whom there was deep skepticism to now this finance chair of the RNC, king of all media, respected, speaks up in the Oval Office with Trump? How did that happen? Tell that story.
Well, first of all, I think Vance is actually very gifted. He's got Kentucky ties. I knew him a little bit. He was a CNN commentator back right when I was hired. He was hired around the same time. And so I've had a little experience with him. Extremely gifted. And I think in the current political environment, if you are a gifted communicator, if you can go on television and do your thing and take down panels and interviews with cable hosts, you can get a lot of credit with voters and with partisans out there. So he obviously has that skill set, bigger than almost anyone else on the national stage. I think that allowed him to overcome his history of not liking Trump. Also, I think people love a convert. JD Vance did not like Donald Trump. And then all of a sudden he realized and decided, hey, Donald Trump's actually good. And my worldview and his do blend together somewhat. And so so you take this guy who's a convert, and then you add in this mixture of extremely powerful communications ability, and you see what happens. I do think he's a little different than Trump in some ways. They don't have the same, energy when it comes to, public facing stuff, but he is so smart. And we saw a little bit of what he can do on the debate stage with Tim Walz. I mean, just own Tim Walz in that debate. And so I agree with you. Republicans do love JD Vance. He is beloved. He is going to be coronated as the nominee of the party. And a lot of it, I think, just has to do with his ability to effectively communicate the current Republican worldview out, in the press and elsewhere. People love that. People love it when we're able to tell our story, tell about our policies, talk about our views in a way that is easy to understand and digestible, and Vance just has a knack to do it.
He's done that. He's done it as the outside game, as you suggest. I totally agree with your analysis. He's also done the inside game. The donors love him. Members of Congress of Republicans love him. Is that just the product of the same thing, or has he done things in private with those two groups that have endeared him?
Well, I think they love those qualities about him. He's a very normal, nice person. I mean, that's been my experience with him. He comes off as a very normal, nice guy. Everybody I know also loves his wife. She comes off as an extraordinarily normal, person as well. So here you have a guy, just a normal person with a normal family. I mean, who are we talking to as Republicans? Normal people with normal families. And JD Vance, I mean, is the embodiment of that. And so now I think his relationship and friendship with some of the people you mentioned has been extraordinarily helpful to him. And to build those relationships was really smart. So it shows some political, tactical smarts to do that. But I think that Vance's overall persona of being just a normal guy who's absorbing the world just like the rest of us, and then reacting to that, causing him to convert to understanding why Donald Trump is good, causing him to want to take a bigger role in explaining our worldview to people. I think the donors love this guy for those reasons. And he's also a hard worker. He does things for people. He shows up for these members of Congress. The normal inside political stuff, the favors, the coming to fundraisers, those kinds of things. JD Vance is always the first person to say yes. And so that also, I think, ingratiates you to people in the structure.
Yeah. What is the Republican Party's strengths today if you subtract Donald Trump? What does the party have going for it? Just say when we get to 28 and Trump's not running again. What are the tactical, technological issue? What are the big strengths of the Republican Party today vis-a-vis the Democrats as you see it?
Well, even though Trump won't be on the ballot, I do think he has successfully rebranded the party as the party of common sense. He understands, I think, that we're currently living through a transformation. The red-blue construct doesn't exactly apply anymore. And now it's really more branding the Republicans as common sense and by definition, the Democrats as uncommon nonsense. He did that. Now, when he's gone, that branding is going to remain. And every Republican I see out there in the country is adopting this common sense branding. So even though he's not running again, he's left behind, I think, a branding legacy that will work for virtually any Republican in any race in the country. And it should work for JD Vance in 2028. As a tactical matter, I think they revolutionized political campaigning last year. For my whole career, the whole focus was always on one kind of a turnout method, calling and knocking the same sort of universe. Lasavita and the guys changed everything. They started to really focus in on these low propensity voters, talking to them, getting them out, and sort of changing the pool from which we were hoping to get our voters. And I think as a tactical matter, that's what we have to do moving forward. The unknown quantity in that is, can you get those low propensity voters that you did convince to turn out for Donald Trump to convert to turning out for whatever Republicans there are, whether it's for Senate or whether it's for the next presidential campaign? That's still unknown. But to me, it's the number one thing the party has to solve between now and 28. Really now in 26 and 28, how do you get these people who love Donald Trump to love every other Republican on the ballot? But as a tactical matter, teaching the party how to kind of cast off the old turnout models and turnout ways and really focus in on these Americans who are somewhat disengaged from our politics, that was a game changer. And it caused Donald Trump to win the national popular vote. And so having that tactical know-how and that mindset, I think, is a huge advantage for the Republicans.
All right. We're going to play some word association. 1 or 2 words. If you go over 1 or 2 words, the segment's over and you have to give back all the money. So here we go. 1 or 2 words. First thing comes to mind. AOC.
Socialist.
Chuck Schumer.
Tired.
John Thune.
Excellent.
Mitch McConnell.
Legend.
Legend. All right, we're going to talk about that in the next segment. Pete Hegseth.
Plucky.
Lucky or plucky?
Plucky.
Plucky. Tucker Carlson.
Fascinating.
Fascinating. That's a good one. Melania Trump.
Class.
Sean Duffy.
Competent.
Scott Bessent.
Awesome.
Awesome. Why do people? I got nothing against Scott Bessent. I get why people like him, but why has he catapulted to this sort of legendary status within the party now?
I'll admit, of all the cabinet picks, he was probably one of the ones I knew the least about, and I just think he and Rubio are the class of this cabinet, and he has done such an excellent job. And he's been handed a tough issue dealing with the economy coming out of Biden. And then on top of that, he's been handed the mantle of having to explain and talk about President Trump's tariff policy and his economic vision to the world. And I think he's just done an excellent job. I see him in these interviews. He does terrific. And then on top of that, he was kind of the quarterback to get the big, beautiful bill over the line last summer. And he succeeded in that as well. So Bessent has every Republican I know. We're all in the Scott Bessent fan club.
Yeah.
He's good. Yeah.
I met him over a year ago, but less than 2 years ago. And I just find it so interesting that in our media culture where, there's so much coverage of everything, almost nobody I know had ever heard of him 2 years ago. And to go from someone no one had heard of. Now, if you knew about Soros or if you knew about his company, sure, people had heard of him, but most people in Republican politics, most members of Congress hadn't heard of him. And he's gone from that to getting one of the top jobs in the cabinet. And as you said, just widely considered one of the superstars of the cabinet. It's kind of a fascinating thing.
he's also another one of these people that in the party, he's a financial elite and he understands that world, but then also has this understanding of why the way we've been doing it in the United States for the last, so many years just isn't connecting with average everyday people. What was wrong with the economy that average everyday people were not benefiting from? And I think his ability to explain that and to really embrace the Trump economic theory and why it just doesn't work in his world, but works for politics. He's really blended it. It's been, it's interesting. I interviewed him for my book, and you can tell he believes in Donald Trump, and he compared him to Teddy Roosevelt. He had a painting of Lincoln over his desk. I said, "Oh, is that your favorite Republican president?" He said, "No, Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt." And he explained to me just the similarities he sees between the two and how much he believes in the Teddy Roosevelt era, but also believes in obviously what Donald Trump is doing.
Now I'd like to tell you about the Vapor Technology Association. It's an organization started about a decade ago to protect the rights of Americans who choose alternatives to smoking and the small businesses who have made a living using this technology. They support science-based policies and the rights of adults to make healthier choices. Did you know that many family-owned vape shops and manufacturers across the country are under attack? That's thanks to outdated Biden-era regulations that threaten to wipe out an entire American industry. The Vapor Technology Association, also known as VTA, says businesses are being destroyed and people are losing their jobs. But the VTA says President Trump now has a clear opportunity to change this and to protect America's right to make their own choices and to defend small businesses and restore a free and fair marketplace. Head over to vaportechnology.org to learn more about the organization, what it does, and why they are leading the charge to support American innovation. If you're there and you read about it and their mission appeals to you, consider becoming a member on the website. Again, that's vaportechnology.org, and tell them when you're there you heard about them on Next Up.